You are listening to Fox Radio 910 and 104.3. I want to welcome you to Let's Talk About, our weekly radio program sponsored by Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia. My name is Linda Balentine, the president of Crowning Touch and your host for this series. I interview local characters, service providers, politicians, teachers, entrepreneurs, and business professionals, and each one is dedicated to improving life in our valley. Every person has an interesting perspective to share from all walks of life. So, let's begin today's interview. Welcome to Let's Talk About, because you need to know. I'm your host, Linda Balentine, and today we're diving into a powerful conversation about aging with purpose and pride. My guest today is Chris Moore, owner of Senior Remodeling Experts of Roanoke, Virginia, and the creator of the inspiring webinar series and Substack, Age Out Loud, because life doesn't have a mute button. I love that title, Chris. Mm-hmm. You've taken what you've learned from years of helping older adults adapt their homes and turned it into a movement, a call for all of us to celebrate the blessings of age rather than hide from them. And your upcoming book, Age Out Loud, challenges how society views aging with chapter titles like Old Age is a Blessing, How Youth Became King, and Society Suffers When Seniors Are Sequestered. I can't wait to dive into this. We can talk about the other chapters. You're going to have 12 chapters in this book. This is all very exciting. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Linda. One of the things that I have run into repeatedly in my remodeling business, as I talk to people who are struggling to get in and out of their home or struggling with the steps and the bathrooms and so on and so forth, and we suggest modifications that can make their life easier.
Right.
And I hear over and over and over, I'm not ready for that yet. I don't want to do that. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't want to change my home. And there's this resistance to really some common sense approaches baffled me for years. And I thought, why is there so much resistance?
Right.
And as I thought about that resistance, it occurred to me that what our perception of getting older means to people is decline.
Right.
And everybody wants to live a long life, but nobody wants to get older.
Well, they lose respect in this country because we don't value the wisdom. We don't accord to the senior population the dignity and respect they deserve. We just don't do it.
Exactly. And old people are looked at as a burden rather than as a resource and a fountain of wisdom and knowledge and experience that we can gain from. And that is really the impetus of Age Out Loud, is that I encourage people to be proud of their age. I encourage people to be excited about the fact that we have another day to live. And we woke up this morning and we were alive.
That's right.
And our eyes opened and we could see. And all of the blessings that we have every day of our life that people take for granted and don't think about and look at aging as a bad thing.
Well, how did youth become king then? I mean, walk it out for me. Share with me what some of your observations have been. I think that's a provocative title of one of your chapters.
It is, and we look at youth as energy and as vitality and as ability to learn new things, and the idea that as people get older they don't have that adaptability. They think that people over 50 can't learn new technology, or people over 50, are over the hill or are over, beyond the ability to keep up with society. And as that attitude has gained traction, we talk about anti-aging. What are anti-aging products? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's not anti-aging at all. It's anti the appearance of aging.
The covering up of aging.
Right. And people spend millions of dollars on keeping themselves looking young. But then what about the idea of being resilient? The idea of being a source of wisdom and knowledge that people have as a result of decades of life, and appreciating those experiences and those things that we've learned, because it's in the challenges and the difficulties and the dry and arid places in our life that we grow, we gain resilience and wisdom and understanding, and all of the resources that are valuable.
So I think what you're really saying is we should be motivated to push back a little bit, not buy into that narrative that somehow we're, a spent model from decades ago and we don't bring anything to the table. There are some syndromes associated with getting older. If you buy into that too much, you tend to want to isolate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You tend to get lonely. It works against your health.
Right.
In other words, the more you listen to that trap, the more mired you get. And so talk to me about how in your book, you deal with it beautifully in your book. Let's talk about the fighting back.
Well, it has to do with mindset. It has to do with our expectation of what it means to be older. And if in our mind we believe that getting older means getting weaker and sicker and less valuable and that we don't have anything to offer, we're going to shrink, we're going to draw back, we're going to think that, nobody values us anymore. On the other hand, if our expectation is, I'm getting better, I'm learning more, at 63, I know way more than I knew at 53. It's the life that I've lived that has taught me how to live life. I feel like I'm just getting started in many ways. I'm just now starting to understand what life is all about.
So you can continue to become a better version of yourself. It's the idea that, and what I love about your book so much is the realization, and what you're trying to get people to realize and appreciate is that there is the possibility of brain cells continuing to grow. You can still make significant differences in your health by how much sleep you get, how much exercise you get. Mm-hmm. Drop some of the habits that don't contribute to your vitality.
Right.
Watch your nutrition. I mean, there's certain things that you can do to edify and build up your desire to cross the finish line strong.
Right.
And we have accidents, we have other stuff happen to us, but it does have to do with mindset. I love that. It was Henry Ford's quote. Can you share that?
If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
I love that. That's so funny because, if you fill yourself with, if you intimidate yourself, if your very thoughts of changing and being strong are intimidating to you, then you are in a mess. They need to read your book. That's all I can say.
I remember hearing a story about two men who were fishing on the St. Lawrence River above Niagara Falls, and their motor died on their boat.
Whoa.
And their boat was drifting toward the precipice.
Yeah.
And one of the men panicked. He despaired. Within a few moments, his hair turned white and he died. A few minutes later, the boat hit a snag.
Wow.
And stopped drifting, and the other man was rescued.
Wow.
And it illustrates that our fear and anxiety of what might happen is the source of most of our consternation in life. Whereas if we have an expectation that we're going to prevail, we're going to be victorious, we're going to be an overcomer of the things that come down the pike in our life, then the chances are good that that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That power of expectation, that power of belief is so much more powerful than people imagine.
Well, and by the time we get to as old as I am, as old as my husband is, we're definitely in the last decades of our life. I love to reflect on that Japanese artistic joinery of broken pottery, where they go ahead and take actual gold and fill the cracks after they've glued it back together. And actually, it becomes, because it is showing the scars,
right?
But it's actually, first of all, it's stronger than it was before. But people, in that culture, they appreciate the things that have gone through life and survived.
Right.
And if we were to take a little bit more of that attitude towards our lives as seniors, in other words, we're not broken, we're not, but there's so much still to appreciate and so much to share.
And it's the the broken places are the gold.
Yeah, right.
And it's the broken places in our lives, and it's the disasters in our lives that we have lived through and come out the other side that make us resilient and make us able to appreciate all of the things that we've been through.
Right.
When my wife Barbara died, and I was devastated.
Yeah, sure.
I was just broken. And in that brokenness, as I walked through the valley of the shadow of death, which I always thought was just a poetic, kind of expression, I found out it's a very real place.
Yeah.
But as I walked through that, I read a book not long after that called Don't Waste Your Sorrows. And it talked about when we go through pain, when we go through sorrow, you're going to have the pain regardless. If you use that pain to draw closer to God and to allow his healing to be the gold in your cracks,
yeah, right, good.
to be the restoration, you gain wisdom, you gain resilience, you gain understanding. If you don't allow that process to occur, you allow bitterness and anger to take over your soul. And I mean, I've seen people who just melt into a puddle on the floor and never come back. And
they can't be made whole that way.
Right. Right.
I mean, you just have to admit your brokenness and then allow you and then recreate yourself. I mean, we still have work to do.
Yeah.
We're still here.
We're still
Your wife, Barbara, is gone, but you're here.
I'm still here. And when I met Michelle and married Michelle, and I am a stronger person, I'm a more understanding person, I'm a more compassionate person, having been through that experience. And really, that's what drives me to share the wisdom that I have and the understanding that I have, and to help somebody somewhere who's going through a difficult time. They're going through pain. They're going through feeling like they don't fit anymore in this world. They've retired and now they've lacking purpose, and they think there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. There's something wrong with the model. There's something wrong with, I heard it described yesterday as 40-40-40. It's the 40-40-40 plan. I've never heard of this before. Do you know what the 40-40-40 plan is?
No, what is it?
The 40-40-40 plan is you work 40 hours a week for 40 years, so then you can live off of 40% of what you were making while you were working.
Wow.
Doesn't seem like much of a plan to me.
No. That doesn't interest me at all. But, we've got a society that actually physically starts to separate and sequester the senior population. Let's talk about that, because that's a huge cultural hurdle and a wall that we've started to build around seniors.
Yes.
The multi-generational home that was so much a part of building America for, at least 200 plus years has now started to be peeled away. And now we're taking seniors and putting them in retirement communities and assisted living facilities. And boy, that is a deal. I mean, some of them are like country clubs, and that's fine for the first few years, maybe when you're there. But, talk about that a little bit.
Well, one of my chapters is the rise and the fall of the Waltons model. We all remember the TV show, well, at least we do, the Waltons from the 70s, where, 3 generations lived under one roof, and every week there was
in Appalachia, right?
It was their life. Yeah. They got a living from the land, and they went through all the life that we go through, and the children knew their grandparents, and they learned from the wisdom of their grandparents. And then as time went on, as the society became more mobile, as we went from a more agricultural society to an industrial society, and people often didn't live near family, the younger generation moved away from the farms to go and find work in the cities, and the older generation was left to fend for themselves.
Right.
And that transfer of knowledge and wisdom from the older generation to the younger generation was in large part broken. And like you said, these communities were developed, whether it be
senior communities,
senior
just
communities
have to be 50 years old or plus to even move in.
Across the board. My mom and dad lived in a town in Arizona, Green Valley, Arizona, and the covenants of the town, in order to buy a house in Green Valley, Arizona, one member of your household has to be over the age of 55.
Right.
And so there's towns. There's the villages in Florida, which is, a big subdivision. There are assisted living and there's all different flavors, but the whole idea is that we'll put the old people over here, and then we'll put the young families over here, and then we'll put the empty nesters over here. And where segregation by race has long been, forbidden or not,
right,
not a good thing in our society, we still think segregation by age is a good idea.
Right.
And so many young people grow up and don't know any older people. And so when the media portrays older people as being dumb and stupid and unable to understand technology and unable to get around and a burden on society, and they've stopped contributing, and they don't have anything to compare that to, they tend to believe it. And a lot of these underlying assumptions we have about age, until you start noticing them and start looking for them, some of them are very subtle. I was at a conference in Norfolk recently, and there was an award being given, and the person giving the award said, "I've known this individual for more years than I care to admit." Okay? And that's another way of saying, I'm ashamed of how old I am.
Right. You're right.
Instead of saying, I've known this person for 50 years, and, it's wonderful that we are still part of this industry and we're still contributing, and I'm very proud of that fact.
Do you think the types of filters that we've started to apply are just creeping and expanding? We do it with our toddlers and our little kids. They're in daycare. Mm-hmm. They're separated. Mm-hmm. We do it. We provide grade level filters on all of the grade. There's no more, one room schoolhouse where everybody used to share and teach each other,
right.
But that's gone.
Yeah.
And so it just seems like a natural walk in on out. It doesn't surprise me that we've gotten this way because we segregate ourselves into all sorts of buckets,
right,
that simply continue to contribute to the isolationism. Here's a good case in point, I think. When you had grandparents and a grandma in the house, you learned how to sew. You learned how to cook. You learned how to have a garden. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about just agrarian stuff. Forget that. Gen Zers can't, they can't cook anything. I mean, we're losing a lot of the traditional skills that you really need. I mean, who knows how to sew a button anymore?
Right.
I mean, seriously, there is a good way to sew a button, and I'm not sure. I mean, if I were to take a poll, I don't know that they'd give me the right answer. So the point is, some of that stuff is still very, very important. It's just symbolic, I think.
Yeah.
Of how deep the problem runs.
In the construction industry.
Yeah, there you go. Another thing.
Most of the skilled tradesmen are, in their 60s.
Right.
And so, trying to get young people to, be in the trades. And it's a challenge because those trades, those skills are being lost. And not only the skills, but the culture. That's and right. the the
pride in doing that kind of work is not appreciated.
In indigenous societies around the world, there are oral traditions. In traditional societies, those traditions of who we are as a people.
Right.
The culture is passed down from generation to generation. And when we don't have that interaction between generations, then culture is lost, and culture becomes just whatever happens to be popular at the moment. in the prevailing media, which can be anything. And so, I mean, that's what we're trying to get across, and to help people to question some of these underlying assumptions and prejudices about what it means to be a certain age. It's been said that ageism is the only ism where we're prejudiced against our future selves.
Yeah, because we bought into it.
We bought into it when we were young, when we were toddlers, when we were, school children. And then when we get to that age, it's subconscious, but we're thinking, oh, well, I'm not able to do this anymore. I'm not able to do that anymore. And, what's my purpose?
Well, it's funny because we spend an awful lot of time aiming for it, looking for it, talking about it. Oh, when you retire, 65 is some sort of magic age. Now they may be pushed it to 70, but the fact is you're trying to get there.
You're trying to get there.
And then you diminish the value of that when you do get there.
When you get there and it's like, wait a minute. This was fun.
Well, then you run yourself down. I mean, that's just, I know, it just doesn't make sense. In terms of, let's just look at Roanoke. Are there anything, when you look around at our society here in Roanoke, can you think of any changes? I mean, you're in the building business, the housing business. I know that I used to say all the time, I'm in moving senior business, but I used to say that they're just not building enough homes for seniors. So the fallback for that is that people are going to have to either move in with children. We're going to have to create some multidimensional stuff again, because it's just gotten very, very expensive for people to go live and, in those communities.
Well, what's wrong with the idea of building houses that work for everybody across all phases of their life?
That's correct.
Why do we have this mentality that we build a house for a starter home for people with young children, and then we build a different house for, empty nesters, and then we build a different house for people when they're, older. And studies show that only 15% of us will get through our entire lives without a mobility impairment of one kind or another.
Right.
Maybe you break your leg skiing and it's for, a couple of months.
Right.
Or maybe it's, you've been in some kind of an accident. Or maybe it's you as you're, in your 80s or 90s and you don't get around as well as you used to. But it's not that hard to build houses that have wider doorways and zero-step entries and some basic features that make it easier for people to get around.
Is that because we're selling out to fashion as opposed to, is this a Better Homes and Gardens problem that, we're just avoiding the issue? We aren't even looking at it?
Part of it is that we have a tendency to do things the way they've always been done. And until something comes along that challenges that mindset, we just keep doing things the way that we're used to. And it's the same way with our personal habits. We live the way we live because that's the way we live. And until we become intentional about habits that improve our quality of life, diet and exercise and sleep and mindset and all of those things, we tend to follow along with what everybody else is doing. And it takes some kind of a wake-up call to realize, wait a minute, this isn't working for me. I need to make a change.
Well, that brings us back to the way you started the conversation in the first place, where people are denying, they don't even want to accept the fact that they need to get rid of the bathtub and put in the shower, because it admits that they're old and there's such a cast on that. Mm-hmm. It makes them feel extra bad because they're not walking in the glory of that.
Right.
They are not walking in their inheritance. They've inherited a long life. Mm-hmm. And they really don't appreciate it.
Right.
There's no gratitude for that.
Right.
There's just embarrassment. And then that keeps them in lockdown and in houses for even longer than they need to be, where they're not willing to make the change.
And it's interesting that societies where people tend to live the longest there's a study done in the blue zones, which are places in the world where people routinely live to be 100 years old. All of those societies are ones that revere and honor and respect their older citizens as wise elders and as people to be respected and looked up to. And whether they respect them because they live longer or whether they live longer because they're respected, I think it's all connected. It all is part and parcel of a viewpoint of aging as being of value, as opposed to what we have in our society and in much of the world that, you're a burden.
Right.
I mean, that's the underlying attitude, is that seniors are a burden. You hear terms like the silver tsunami and that, it's going to crash on our shores, and how are we going to take care of all these people, instead of what a rich resource we have of all these people who have such wisdom and knowledge and understanding about life.
It's I just want to take a minute. We only got a little bit of time here, and I just wanted to encourage everybody that's listening. One of the things that we can all do is that if your parents are still alive, you can start appreciating them, encouraging them, and enticing them to go ahead and share their wisdom.
Yeah.
Share it with you. While that's one thing we can all do, love all over them, and just start turning back, the page a little bit, that way. Well, this has been a really refreshing and thought-provoking. This went way too fast here, Chris. Being the owner of Age Out Loud, because life doesn't have a mute button, is it's just a fantastic book. If today's discussion resonated with any of our listeners, you can find Chris's ongoing webinar series and articles on Substack under Age Out Loud, and his full book will be released soon, right?
Absolutely.
12 chapters. You just have to finish writing them?
I got to finish writing them. Yeah.
Well, God bless you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And everybody else can join us the next time we continue shining a light on the people, ideas, and innovations shaping life right here in our community. Thank you.
Okay.
God bless you, dear.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to Let's Talk About, courtesy of Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia, the only moving company with a consignment shop, auction house, and real estate division. We are a one-stop shop for any senior making a move. Check out our website at crowningtouchusa.com. Or if you are planning a move, call Anna at 540-982-5800 to arrange a free estimate. And don't forget to check out our monthly browse and bid auctions at 6712 Williamson Road in Roanoke, where you can bid online on over 1,800 items each month. Meanwhile, let's get back together next Friday at noon for more of Let's Talk About on Fox 910 and 104.3.